A rocking reception for the return of Pat McAfee last night, and an amplified ovation for LA Knight. Yeah, a thunderous reception for the return of John Cena, and absolute pandemonium for the shock return of The Rock. It all happened on a deafening SmackDown just last night. We're going to cover it all on today's Amped Up podcast featuring SmackDown for 9/15/2023. We're also, unfortunately, going to have to talk about the mass firings that happened within WWE just yesterday. Wait till you hear how many people were released. And that is just the start of it. The talent will soon be affected as well. We're going to cover it all. It is going to be one absolute wild review podcast. I just need you guys to do 4 things. Grab your coffees, lock in your earbuds, smash those ups, and let's get amplified. My amplified unit. So we have to navigate through the lows to get to the highs. So we'll get to SmackDown in just a couple of minutes. But unfortunately, yesterday, over 120 employees from World Wrestling Entertainment were relieved of their duties. Now, of course, this is a fancy way to say, you're fired. They were fired. Now, we knew this was coming. We didn't know how soon the announcement was going to be after TKO Holdings Group hits the NYSE New York Stock Exchange. Little did we know it was going to be 24 hours later. They were not playing around. When they said they were getting their ducks in a row, they're dotting their I's, they're crossing their T's, they're waiting until they go up on the NYSE, and then they'll make decisions about employees and talent afterwards. No, that was not the case. You do not make 120 firings unless this is exactly what was being thought about from day one. Now, Bayley told you what was left in previous podcasts. We've talked about this to an amplified measure. That WWE, before they were bought out or merged, they were trying to sexify themselves, right? They were trying to look presentable to a potential buyer. So what WWE did when they were in the old Stamford, Connecticut headquarters, and they were still, McMahon had sole ownership, all that good stuff, or they were trading under WWE's exclusive NYSE status. What they were doing is they were firing a lot of people. They were getting rid of full departments, and they were taking other departments and mixing them, merging them, condensing them with other departments. And so they were losing a lot of people. But what this does is it makes you look much more presentable if somebody wants to buy you out, right? Oh, they have a nice tight ship. There's no excess baggage. There's not a lot of costs that need to be cut. But trust me, in these type of businesses, even after an acquirement has been achieved, after a merger or a buyout, the parent company or entity will always find a way to cut more cost. But back to the original point, they looked at WWE and they said, all right, you got a nice tight ship. And that was what made Nick Khan and Vince McMahon, it's what allowed them to cut this deal with Endeavor and be worth over $9 billion and really turn into a $21 billion conglomerate with UFC and all of Endeavor's assets. But they sexified themselves. They fired so many people. So BC said, well, what's left? What could possibly be left? Well, hold my coffee, right? I mean, that's what Ari Emanuel from Endeavor is basically saying. Hold my coffee. I'm going to find a way to cut more cost through employees. And he started right from the jump with over 100 employees yesterday fired. And you gotta believe he's not done there. He's gonna try to find another 20 to 30 to 50 more employees somewhere, right? Maybe they're in the courtyard eating lunch. Maybe they're on the roof hiding, heads in the fridge, hoping that Emmanuel walks right by them. Maybe they're hiding in cabinets. But you gotta believe these employees know that it's not even done yet. The memo from Nick Khan came out earlier that morning, and that day they're getting fired. An hour later, after the memo says, hey, you might be getting fired, thanks for your services, they end up getting fired. But if you think that endeavor is done yet, not even close. I mean, they already instituted that flywheel when they acquired the UFC, and they were able to cut $70 million in cost. $70 million when they acquired the UFC. You gotta believe Ari is looking at the WWE, which is a much bigger conglomerate, and thinking, I can at least get $100 million in cut cost and expenses. So my Steiner math has been a little off over the years, but let's just do a little bit of math to show you that employees is just the start of it. If you're going to come anywhere near $70 to $100 million in cut cost, you're going to eventually cut talent. And that sucks to say that. But let's do a little Steiner math. Let's say the bare average of these 100 employees, and it was more than 100, over 120, but let's just say 100, a nice even number. 100 employees got fired yesterday. Let's say the average annual salary is $150,000, right? That's a good six-figure check. Some people obviously are getting more than that, 200 plus maybe. Some people just hitting the six-figure 100,000. So let's say the average for an employee in WWE is about 150. I'm being generous. I doubt everybody's even near $150. But let's say $150. 100 times 150,000. Okay, Steiner math's a little off, but that equals what? 15, 16 million? 15 to 16 million dollars, right? I think it's around 15. And if you add in the other 20, because it's over 120 employees, maybe we can even be generous and say 16 million. Let's be more generous. Let's say $20 million in cost was cut from these firings. $20 million. You are nowhere near your 70 to 100. You're eventually going to have to cut those multi-million-dollar contracts where 3 to 4 wrestlers could potentially hit you near $10 million in cut cost. A Bobby Lashley here, a Drew McIntyre here, and before you know it, you're at $10 million, and you cut cost on individuals that don't really get that big of a reaction. Superstars they should be. People, we actually enjoy their work. We like these dudes. We want them to have good booking, but there's no real reaction. So if they cut a couple million here, a couple million there, and nobody gives a damn. If you let Edge go over to AEW, you don't re-sign him for $3 to $5 million on a part-time schedule. Well, that's $3 to $5 million you don't have to account for when you're processing that paperwork. So this is what I'm saying. It's these little things here and there. You're going to have to trickle over to the talent. They're saying there's not going to be releases. Yeah, they're not singing that tune so vividly anymore, right? Months ago, when this was first announced, they said, oh, we don't expect this to affect talent. Now you're not hearing that so much, are you, from Nick Khan? Now you're hearing, oh, we're going to start with employees. You guys might be fired. An hour later, oh, by the way, over 120 of you guys fired. Oh, talent. There's a chance it might affect you guys, but we don't know yet. An hour later, don't be surprised if 50 talents are being fired. Anyway, guys, that's a big story that has developed over the last 24 hours. It's a big reason why you saw people like Dwayne Johnson last night and John Cena strategically placed on that show, even if they couldn't get The Rock. It's a big reason why they tried to stack the show last night. They usually do this, right? When something big is going on business-wise, that's going to cause a stir inside those walls, cause panic. With the fans, cause an uproar, or at least all this other conversation that's off the product. WWE will do everything they can to get the headlines back on the product. And damn did they do that, though, bro. They did. Oh, I tell you this. Vinnie Mac made sure, where's my doofus son-in-law? You want to talk about ripping up scripts? I don't know what you want to call it, but they needed this show to take all the bad press and headlines. They needed it to be talked about in the right reasons. And I gotta tell you, the old bastard in Stamford, Connecticut, he did it, man. He put the headlines where they should be. Wait till you hear what happened last night. I say we talk about it. I'm going to get a big swig of coffee. Much love and respect to everybody that lost their job over the last 24 hours over in WWE. And we know you'll bounce right back. These are some heavy-hitting positions. It takes a lot of smarts. I mean, the titles of these people are very smart. The titles, I don't even know what it consists of. It just sounds smart. So something tells me they're going to be just fine. Salute to everybody that worked behind the scenes over in WWE and that unfortunately were just casualties in this business war. WWE SmackDown for Friday, September 15th, 2023. Wait till you hear what happened on this show. Salute. Pat McAfee starts this show. While the return of McAfee may not have been that shocking because they were Endeavor. Now I got Endeavor. I got to keep reminding myself that Endeavor now owns WWE. That's just wild to even conceive that notion. Anyway, not in Endeavor. They were in Denver. Endeavor. Come on, man. It's still early for this podcast, bro. Because they were in Denver, people said, okay, Pat McAfee's most likely going to show up because Pat's podcast is recorded about an hour away. So I get it, right? I mean, most of us thought, hey, there's a chance we see Pat. Maybe he's on commentary for the 2 hours. I got to tell you, shocking or not, it was great to see this dude. Like, really good to see Pat, man. To hear his voice on the intro. I don't know if he's always had that at his theme song, right? Where they have his voice record beforehand. Maybe they did. I just never picked it up. But it's really cool to see Pat. Pat is just one of those authentic, amplified people. You're just going to get those in the moment vibes from this dude because he's just in the moment. That's just how he lives. It's incredible, man. Pat McAfee was just born for professional wrestling. Really good to see this dude. And that wasn't even the biggest surprise in this segment. Austin Theory hits the ring. That's not the surprise I'm talking about. But Austin Theory hits the ring. Theory's having a back and forth with Pat McAfee. He's holding his own. He's not stuttering. He looks more confident than ever before. Austin Theory, man, he was rocking at this point. It was really good to see him finally coming into his own, man. Something was different in Theory. I think they had a long talk with this dude, and they said, you're about to be in a massive segment. Massive. And we need you to really just be with it, man. Like, this has to come across really just organic. This has to just has to be a connection. Something. I don't know. This was a different Austin Theory in this promo, man. And it was just going to get better. The Rock returns to WWE in Denver, Colorado on SmackDown last night. Literally, McAfee looks at Theory and says, you don't understand. This is the people's company or something. This is the people's something. He mentioned people's, and when he said that, we know that The Rock was on the McAfee show earlier that day. The Rock was in Denver. I was live yesterday cutting a podcast for my channel members up in the chat, my gold team. And while I was live, you guys were telling me that you're hearing The Rock will be backstage. So you guys were getting the news and delivering it to BC because I was live. I was cutting a show. And you guys were telling me he was backstage. Now, I said, okay, because of the writer's strike, they're still trying to dot their I's and cross their T's. The Rock doesn't want to really cross that. Now, I know WWE is not really crossing that line because WWE is not part of SAG-AFTRA. But a lot of the line will look at you going over and getting more money over here, millions of dollars, if you're like John Cena. Because we're hearing he's going to get upwards to $2 to $3 million just for the 8 appearances he's scheduled for in WWE. 8. Imagine getting $2 to $3 million to show up and do a Grayson Waller effect or to guest referee an LA Knight Miz match. But usually when you are in these strikes and you see one of your fellow members making money elsewhere, Maybe they have a different trade and they're fine. Instead of standing in that line at that moment, they're making money over here. And it's a bad look, right? A lot of people on the picket lines, they will not like that. A lot of people on the strike lines, they will not like that you're not with them. You're making all this money while they're trying to think about how I'm going to put the next plate of food on the table for my fam. They don't like that. That's why John Cena took some flack. So I told you guys when you told me that The Rock was backstage, I said I doubt he's going to show up in front of because Rock's $7 Productions has just lost deals with NBC Universal, Comcast, Peacock. They just lost a deal with them because Comcast wanted them to go back to work on a certain movie that was already in production, and The Rock held his ground. He said no, not until this is all fully resolved. And then all of a sudden he's in WWE last night. That was a total shocker to BC. I thought because he was holding his ground so much. But I think once he saw John Cena go over to WWE and then the backlash kind of died off real quick, The Rock was like, well, what the fuck, man? I'm doing nothing for months. He's having the time of his life over here, collecting a few $1 million extra. The Rock's like, I'm getting older. I'm still in damn good shape. I got to utilize this. So The Rock, man, returns. Once McAfee says the people's something, I forgot the exact line. All of a sudden, if you smell, and sure enough, the music cascades through the arena. Guys, I mean deafening. I mean, there was an amplified pandemonium going on. And if you're wondering the definition of pandemonium, it is a wild uproar. That's the definition of pandemonium. Wild uproar. This was a wild uproar for The Rock. It really reminded you just how he made you feel something. I always try to tell my audience today, because I know I have a younger audience as well that watches, and that's totally cool. But I always tell them, you hear stories of the Attitude Era, and you're probably like, man, I wish these old fogies would just shut up about the Attitude Era. But I don't think a lot of these younger fans understand what we're trying to say. We could still get elements of that today. It doesn't have to be people getting chased with a chainsaw or people jumping off a 100-foot little building, right, into a trash fucking dumpster. It doesn't have to be any of that. We don't have to have the puppies or the blood or all of that. We're just saying larger than life characters and stories that we care about, we can get invested into, right? And when we say larger than life characters, we mean individuals that make you feel something. Like when they're in your presence, you're in awe. You don't even realize it, but your jaw is dropped. The Rock does that. From the time his music hits before he even steps out through the curtain, you are in a wild uproar. It's pandemonium. There's only been a handful of people that have done that over the course of the decades that I've been watching. Hulk Hogan would cause pandemonium before he stepped out through the curtain. Music alone, when it comes crushing down and it hurts inside. Stone Cold Steve Austin, the glass shattered, your ass was through the roof. The Rock, and a couple of others. Some people throw Edge in there. All right, it's a good reaction, but it's not over. I mean, it's not like Stone Cold Rock. Edge, though, for a time, there was a time where Jericho actually would do that as well. And a few others, but it's only a handful. And you don't have that these days. And when you get somebody like The Rock and you hear that wild uproar, that pandemonium, I literally, man, I got a new big screen about a couple months ago, tops, maybe a month ago. And I don't need to go past volume 15. That's really loud, by the way. A normal person probably has it at 8 or 9. That's fine. That's how good this volume is on the TV. I put it to 15 because I'm just amplified in everything I do. So I got it at 15. It's never had to go past 15. Not for my Yankee games, my Packer games, nothing. I jacked that sumbitch to 47. 47 because I was just in the moment. I wanted to feel what that crowd was feeling at that moment, man. The Rock had a jacket on, but you could tell he had the goosebumps. And I pumped that shit to 47 and it was just deafening. Because I just knew that is a moment for anybody who was in attendance there in Denver. Man, was that a moment. The Rock returns, and the promo is off the wall, first of all. I mean, the 7-second delay dude and the beeper dude for Fox, I mean, that was annoying. They have to stop that. They have to. I don't know if you got to bump up the rating or what, but every other word was being beeped out, and there was full sentences that had to get beeped out. There was one point where The Rock said, I want this side of the arena to chant "you are," and the other side, an asshole. And they would do that, and they did it for a full minute and a half, and they would beep out the "you're an asshole" part. So the whole thing was beeped. And then when it finally stopped, The Rock said, I want to have this side get the chance to say you're an asshole. So you're going to say "you are," and now you're going to say "an asshole." So for about 3 to 5 minutes easily, I will call a good 4 minutes, that's just what we did. So everybody at home or watching outside that arena, you were just getting a 7-second delay beep. You were just getting literally, and it's not even a beep out, it's just, it mutes. So the whole thing was basically muted out, and it just takes you away from the vibe, the moment. They have to stop that shit. I could see if it's the wrestler saying it. I'm fine with that. But when the crowd is chanting it, no. Tell your kid they're saying something else. Right? You can always do that. Broadcast commentary used to do that for years. The crowd would be chanting something that we knew what they were saying. Like, bullshit. And commentary was like, they love the ship. Right? It's Tugboat. Remember Tugboat? What a ship. But, I used to love Tugboat, man. He's a good dude, too, man. Natural disasters with Earthquake. Anyway, I'm going back to the 80s, 90s. But the point is, you can easily just manipulate what they're saying, the crowd. You did not have to mute the entire thing, man. Because that was so much fun. You could have took the audience at home on a wild ride with everybody there in Denver. But instead, Fox is like, let's mute everything. So that was the only real bad part. Other than that, man, not just The Rock being on, but Austin Theory. I have to give this guy so much respect, finally. I've been hard on the dude, but before I was hard on the dude, I told you guys I'm high on Austin Theory. I said there's so much potential in Austin Theory. I say I want to see this kid do big, good things. And then it just didn't connect. So on this channel, we're honest, right? We're not going to sugarcoat because we want the product to be the best it can possibly be. So that's why people say we're harsh and we're so negative, but that's fine as long as we're truthful, as long as we're being honest. Because if we're being honest, we get performances like that last night. And Austin Theory was on his A game, pun intended. A-Town, A-game. Because this dude was on. There was no stuttering. There was full confidence. There was no hesitation. There was the conviction in his eyes, his mannerisms, his expressions. Every movement not wasted in this promo. Austin Theory. Everybody's going to be talking about The Rock, Pat McAfee. Please, when it's all said and done, talk about Austin Theory. Because it takes two to tango in The Rock. And Austin, there was a moment right from the jump. I'm like, here we go. Austin Theory's going to be like the middleman who's just going to get his ass whooped for the returning superstar. We've seen this same movie play out time and time again. Rock's going to beat up the dweeb Austin, just like The Miz would get beat up for so long by the returning superstar, Grayson Waller. But Austin Theory's performance was so good that I was captivated in this entire thing, minus Fox muting out every other word. Austin Theory, what a performance, man. And The Rock ends up dropping Theory, delivers the people's elbow, tells Pat McAfee to deliver the Mac elbow, and he just drops. It was the slowest thing in the world. I'm pretty sure Mae Young could have delivered that elbow faster, but McAfee gets in on it. And it was just what a way to kick off this show, man. And you still had Jonathan Cena later in the show. You still had a big match with LA Knight and Miz. And you had Asuka and Bayley coming up ahead of Asuka and Io's match next week. So match-wise, there were some big matches coming up. There was John Cena, and all of a sudden, you just started off with a 21-minute Rock Pat McAfee return. And he took the 21 minutes. There was a moment where Pat McAfee said it's only a 2-hour show. Rock looks at Pat Mac and he says, I know it's 2 hours, but The Rock's having some fun right now. And you knew The Rock was in no hurry to get this thing done. Now, there was one match that got I think everything got affected after. I think Miz and LA Knight went about 12 minutes. We'll go over the exact match time when we get to that match. I think it was roughly 12 minutes. It was probably supposed to go 15. There was one match that got greatly reduced, and it was horrible. It should have been cut. We're going to get to that in 2 minutes. But everything got affected afterwards, but I'm pretty sure none of us mind that much. It was The Rock inside of a WWE ring and doing what he does best, entertaining all of us, and damn, did he ever. Pandemonium is the word that I'm using. And you know what? That's gonna be the thumbnail as well. It was pandemonium. I'm gonna make sure of it because it's the perfect word to describe that atmosphere. And by the time Jonathan Cena came out in the main event seg, an hour and a half later, they got so damn loud again. Denver did not stop. Cena was actually saying to the camera, to Stu, he was actually saying, after all they've seen tonight, this is verbatim, he looks into the camera, he says, after all they've seen tonight, they still have that reaction for me. And he says, time to go to work, Stu. And he fucking takes those fucking jorts all the way to the ring. And he rocks out that segment. We'll go over that in about, 10 minutes. We still have to go over the rest of hour one. Then we'll go to hour number 2. Let me get a swig of coffee. And I'm going to talk about the first match of the night. This was Balor and Styles. So, Finn Balor defeats AJ Styles via pinfall off the devastating crucifix hold him down roll up. Jimmy Uso causes the distraction. Now, I want you guys to remember this finish because they did the same finish for the ladies. That's what I mean. You want to be original, right? You want to give your audience something different for every segment. I don't know if they did this purposely or they just said, you know what? Our minds are everywhere else. We're John Cena here. You got Pat McAfee. You got The Rock. As far as the finishes, let's just do the same thing. Maybe they said that. But I want you guys to remember this finish because for the ladies, you basically got the same thing. But Balor defeats Styles. Jimmy Uso caused a little bit of a distraction, almost like he's teasing being in the Judgment Day. And Balor's able to do the crucifix, hold them down, roll. I still consider it a roll up because all you're doing is you're rolling them over and you're just holding them down, right? You're holding their arm. You didn't deliver a move. They're not knocked out. They didn't have a devastating move, not even a DDT, not a choke slam, not even a clothesline. You just rolled them and you're holding them. It's a roll up. So remember that because that'll be up in a little later. But AJ Styles takes a big L. But when it's all said and done, AJ Styles looks like a main eventer. I'll explain what I mean in just a little bit when we get over to hour number 2. Then you get to the worst segment of the night by far. And this, I believe, was a heavy hit by time restraints due to The Rock. But it should have just been scrapped then because this was really bad. This was the LWO in the Street Business segment. They trade shots together. LWO's in the ring. Santos Escobar is in a nice little fancy suit, looking like he's already a heel. You know it's coming. They're already planting the seeds, right? He's got the slick suit. Fans hate that. I don't know how Cody Rhodes is able to get away with it. Because usually if you got that suit, remember Jericho and his heel roll when he was wearing the suit, The Miz and so many others. But Santos is asking Ray for a title shot. Ray's like, are you serious? You're really... Of course! You know, at first you'd think he's like offended. So they hug it out and they're going to have a match. Yay. And then the Street Business comes out. And guys, the Profits are out there dressed... Honestly, you find it. Find the... Whatever. Look at the Street Profits. They're out there dressed like a mariachi band about to perform at Disney's Epcot Center. They look like they're performing in a Disney performance as a mariachi band. Or a high school band. I don't know what they're wearing. Can we do something with the outfit? Bobby Lashley's out there. Bobby Lashley's talking to himself. After the Street Profits say some words, Bobby Lashley's saying something, but LWO's music already hit. Because Del Toro and Wilde said something. They shouted some words. I don't even know what they said. They just like yelled real quick, and then their music hit. So LWO's music is going. Bobby Lashley's talking into the mic. The mic's already been cut off. When music plays, the mic gets cut. That's what production is told to do. So production didn't fuck up. Bobby just didn't know that he should have gotten his words in before. So somebody missed their cue. So Bobby's yelling into the mic. Nobody can hear him. He's basically just talking to himself. LWO's music is rocking out. We go to commercial. And when we come back, guys, the match was even worse. Because the Profits defeated Del Toro and Wilde in roughly 70 seconds. 70 seconds. Now, again, you can blame The Rock for going well over his allotted time in Q1, segment 1. But in this scenario, just cut the match. You know, if you know you're only giving them 70 seconds, just don't even do it. Don't do it. Have something happen. A chair shot to one of the Street Profits are the heels. So maybe Del Toro gets a fucking chair shot to his knee and he gets beaten down and they can't even have the match. That would be, just don't have the match. Because this is the type of, you can't do this, man. I don't care if it's just Wilde and Del Toro. BC, they're jobbers anyway, man. It doesn't matter. Nobody looks good in any of this, guys. You guys realize that this does nothing for the LWO or the Street Profits? Like, think about this victory. You probably have to think hard, right? You probably already forgot about it. You probably don't know how it finished. I don't even have it in my notes. It wasn't even that important. Or maybe I blinked and it was already over. That's what she said. But seriously, guys, somewhere during all of this, again, you got Santos and Ray for the future in a title match. Other than that, I can't tell you what any of this was for. The Rock went over. That sucks. Then you know what? This should have just been a backstage segment where Santos asked Rey Mysterio for a title match. Because for the Profits and the rest of the LWO, this was absolutely fucking bad. You know, they knew they only had 70 seconds and they still had him go out there. The promo was longer than the... Maybe just cut the promo. We didn't need to see the Street Profits and the LWO going back and forth because it was really bad anyway. So cut that and maybe take that 2 minutes and give it to the other 70 seconds and you would have had at least a 3-minute match. I tell you, man. Salute as we go into hour number 2. It's The Miz versus LA Knight. Yeah. Let me talk to ya. So Miz versus LA Knight. This was a 12-minute match. Knight hits BFT, Blunt Force Trauma, for the W. Post-match, he says he's coming for the gold. It doesn't matter if it's Mysterio. He doesn't care if it's Gunther. He doesn't care if it's Sethington Rollins. And he sure as hell doesn't care if it's Roman Reigns. But he's coming for gold with everybody saying LA Knight. Yeah. Now, when he finishes that promo, we cut backstage. We start off on a TV and we pan left to Paul Heyman and Solo Sikoa watching LA Knight say this, calling out Roman Reigns, and Paul Heyman and Solo aren't too happy. So, again, more seeds planted for down the line, LA Knight versus Roman. It's not the time now. But down the line, man, another seed planted. Very good. And he saved Roman for last when he was going down the line of who he'll take the gold from. Pretty damn good. Another big victory for LA Knight. Looks like that's it. Doesn't look like we're going to run this back at Fastlane. Some people thought maybe some schmozzery and you'll do another Miz LA Knight match. But no, this was another decisive victory, just like Payback. This one even more so. Then we go into Asuka versus Bayley. Asuka defeats Bayley via pinfall off the devastating backslide, hold 'em down, roll up. There was a slight distraction from Shotzi Blackheart. Shotzi with the distraction and a hold 'em down roll up. Sound familiar? This is what I was telling you guys. Balor and Styles, same finish. Where you had Jimmy Uso with the slight distraction, Balor, crucifix, hold 'em down, roll up on Styles. This was Asuka defeating Bayley, Shotzi with the distraction, and it was a backslide, hold 'em down, roll up. Again, Not the traditional roll-up. I get it. That's the schoolboy pin, the cradle, inside cradle, total package. But I consider all these roll-ups because you're just holding them down. You're just holding their arms down. And again, all I'm asking is get more creative. You can't have every match end with somebody just getting held down. These are professional wrestlers, man. A lot of them with big muscles. Not the same big muscles from back in the day, but big muscles nonetheless. You don't believe that they're just going to be held down. And most of the time you're doing it with people smaller than you. In this case, man, Asuka's a lot more tiny than Bayley. You probably don't think of that, but when you see them face to face, one of them, very tiny. Asuka, you don't realize it. She's very tiny. Bayley, you don't realize it. There's a lot of women going on there. And she's just being held down on that backslide. Very odd. Congrats to Asuka. She'll go on next week to take on Io Sky for the Women's Championship. I don't see how either one of these ladies can lose, but I'll tell you this, Io cannot lose that championship. But I said that about Asuka 18 different times, and every time I say that, Asuka loses. So she doesn't even get a title reign, just like this last one. Be interesting to see how they're going to book this, man, next week. Then we go into the Grayson Waller effect with Jonathan Cena as your guest. This was in the main event slot. And there was a great Deion Sanders. First of all, the reaction for John Cena, just absolutely thunderous. If The Rock's reaction was pandemonium, this was thunderous. I mean, it was amplified. Like I said, John Cena looked right at Stu's camera and he said, after all they've seen tonight, they still have that type of love and reaction for me. Let's do this, Stu. And he takes off to the ring. I mean, it was so loud. I was like, damn, like, it sucks that we have to go back to old stars to feel this way, doesn't it? Like, we should be feeling that reaction for Bob Lashley or Drew Snoozentyre. We should be talking about Drew McIntyre, proudfully. And instead, it's one of those scenarios where you just, you think about what could be with proper booking. But they didn't have that. So you have no big stars other than maybe Roman. And he only works about once every month, maybe every 2 months. Bray Wyatt was the only other larger than life guy. And Bray Wyatt, unfortunately, gone. So I guess it's only Roman. And Roman's nowhere near Rock John Cena status, obviously. So, not to bring the mood down here, because we should be talking positively about that reaction last night. But it's also, it's one of those sobering moments like, damn, there's nobody on the roster today that gives us that reaction that The Rock or Jonathan Cena or Stone Cold gives us. Edge was the closest, but he's another Attitude Era guy. And over time, that got lower and lower because he started making more appearances. But even Edge was nowhere near Rock, Cena, Stone Cold. Edge was a tier below. But it's a shame that after all these years, there's nobody else that... Like I'm thinking about the people who are younger today. Who are they going to have in 10 years that's going to give that type of reaction, right? Like, we have the Stone Colds, the Rocks, the Cenas. Cool. Who do younger fans today, who are they going to have in 10 years? Bob Lashley and Drew McIntyre come out. I mean, is that going to be thunderous and pandemonium when Drew McIntyre comes out? When Bobby Lashley comes out, is it going to be thunderous? When Rey Mysterio comes out, man, it's already not. Dude's already a legend. He's already in the Hall of Fame and he's still active. Rey Mysterio doesn't even get that type of pop. Who are they going to have? That's what I mean. It's sad to think about it that way, right? When wrestlers really made you feel something like that. Last night, we started the show with The Rock. And John Cena reminds you just that, like, you can get that reaction. You just have to build that equity. And you have to build that equity. You have to build that equity to an amplified measure. And this company just has shown you time and time again, they don't want to do it. They don't have time for it. They don't care enough to do it. They put all their eggs into the Roman basket, but that only takes you so far. And he's the number one heel. Now, maybe they're banking on one day they're going to cash in all those eggs, right? All those chips will be on the table in one big bet. And they're going to try to turn Roman into the biggest face of all time. It's not going to work, though. As much as I'm loving Roman's work, Roman will never have the charisma like The Rock. He can never make the appearances, just health-wise, that John Cena makes around the world. It's just the truth, man. So they just don't have anybody. It was a sobering moment to start off the show with that type of reception for The Rock and end it with John Cena like that. What a reception. Now, there was a great line here where Grayson Waller says, because John Cena, they're just starting a talk show, and Cena's sitting down with his little hat and his never give up shirts, all that stuff. Armbands, you name it. And Grayson Waller says, now I was taught that when you speak to adults, you take your hat off. Guys, that was a Deion Sanders jab. If you don't know, Deion Sanders is now coaching for Colorado college. No NFL. He's not the head coach for the Denver Broncos, but college in Colorado. And Deion Sanders is making a lot of headlines, man. He's a lot of talking point. He's got a damn good team. He's got an unorthodox approach that people are really like gravitating toward. And the coach that he's about to take on this weekend, he took a little bit of a jab, and he said, talking about Deion Sanders, he says, like, I don't understand the whole hat thing and everything. I was taught growing up that when you speak to adults, you take your hat off. And everybody was like, why? This is about a football game. Why would you take a jab at the coach like that? Just because Deion's a little different, and he wears his hat when he talks to people. So this was a big headline in the sports world. So a lot of you guys may not have known that, but that's why he said that line, and a lot of the crowd there in Colorado was like, oh, damn. That was a jab to the Deion Sanders controversy. So I like that, because John Cena's got his hat on, obviously. So Cena's like, I see what you did there. They have a little bit of a back and forth. Grayson Waller will not really let Cena say anything, and then Jimmy Uso comes out. Jimmy Uso says, you embarrassed me last week, Uso, let's see you do it again. And at this point, John Cena's taking off the shirt, and he's like, all right. And Solo Sikoa comes to the ring. Now, Jimmy doesn't know if Solo's going to take him out, or is he there to take out Cena. At first, Solo is going after Cena, but he stops, and he's going after Jimmy, I should say. And then he super kicks John Cena. And then Jimmy and Solo put the boots to Jonathan Cena. This will bring out AJ Styles to clear the ring. The heels would retreat, Jimmy and Solo, with Paul Heyman calling Roman Reigns. And this would leave AJ Styles and Cena. There was a point at the tail end where Jimmy Uso, I think he was going to get an attitude adjustment, or maybe it was AJ Styles that had him up. But Jimmy was up, and he was about to take a move from the faces, and Paul Heyman, who's on the phone with Roman, is screaming, save Jimmy, save Jimmy. Now, you could tell these are orders from Roman at the moment. Roman was on the phone. That's how they're playing it off. So Roman is screaming at Paul, save Jimmy, have him save Jimmy. So Paul is on the phone. He's screaming, save Jimmy. Solo takes the orders, gets Jimmy out of the ring. Then the heels retreat, and then AJ Styles and Cena, the faces, are left for the crowd to cheer as we fade to black, and we end a SmackDown full with Pandemonium. Woo! That was a lot to go over in a short amount of time, man. I hope you guys enjoyed the review. Hopefully I covered it good for you guys. That was I'm not going to say it's one of the best SmackDowns of all time. There was questionable decisions, obviously. Some things that should have been fully cut because other things went over their time a lot. But all considered, man, if you're like BC, you felt something in that show last night. It was really, I was hanging on that 21 minutes with The Rock. The Rock could have went 47 minutes, and I was fine with that. Because that was more entertaining than most of the stuff we get on these shows lately. And by lately, I mean the last 10 years. And that's sad that you have to bring back The Rock to make wrestling fans get that loud. That you have to bring back The Rock or a John Cena to make wrestling fans care that much. And that's why I always say when fans go, wrestling is the best it's ever been, or this is the best time to be a wrestling fan, or the wrestling business is booming again. I'm like, this is wishful. You want it to be all those things, but it's not. The financial business side for WWE is booming, and that's it. That's it. WWE's financial business is booming. because they liquidated the assets that they've built up for decades. And that's how they got the Peacock deal for $1 billion, the Fox $1 billion deal, all the TV rights, the tens of millions of dollars from countries like Saudi Arabia that pays Vince McMahon all that money just to have his wrestlers go over there twice a year. All of that Vince cashed in on over the last several years, and they've been making record profits. Now you're starting to see that's gonna decline. Nick Khan is already seeing that Fox and Comcast is not willing to pay those TV rights deals. The ratings go backwards to a 1.3, last week 2.0 for SmackDown. They all went backwards big time. This week, obviously, is going to be much bigger. Surprise with The Rock, the promotion of Jonathan Cena. You're going to get a much bigger rating. But on average, everything's going backwards. So that's why I said in a year, 2, 3 years, even under Endeavor, don't be surprised if business is not booming for WWE. But that's the only thing that's booming. AEW's business is not booming. Tony Khan is telling you he's not making a profit yet. You can sell out Wembley 10 times a year. Tony Khan is not making a profit yet. Just because you can sell out arenas and you have a TV rights deal, that doesn't mean you're making profit yet. You guys have to understand how this works. And to Tony Khan's credit, the boss of AEW, he says, he's very honest about that. He says, we're not where we need to be yet on profit, but we're working toward it. So I got to give him credit. He is at least truthful on that. But indie promotions are telling you that they're just getting by. Impact Wrestling every day is scraping by. The wrestling business is not booming. WWE's financials have been. Creatively, pro wrestling is in the shitter, and it has been. Fan interest has been going backwards for the last 10 years. Don't cut me horseshit that the wrestling business is booming. It's not. And if you needed any more proof, listen to the reactions you've been getting been giving for the last 10 years, and then listen to those reactions last night for people like The Rock and John Cena. Now compare them to Bob Lashley. Compare them to Drew McIntyre. Compare them to Rey Mysterio. Compare them to anybody on that roster, whether it's a Miz or a Tommaso, whether it's a Charlie Flair or a Piper Niven, a Bronson Reed or a John Gargano, a Viking Raider, or an Otis. As much as we love and we respect most of these dudes and gals, you're not getting that type of reaction. No, the wrestling business will boom when we can start caring about what we're watching. The Rock and John Cena. What a 1-2 punch. Yeah, you add in some LA Knight and Pat McAfee. That was a raucous time last night, SmackDown. The 15th of September. Next week is a big one. The championship is on the line. Asuka, Io. A dream match for the ages. My name's BC Amplified. This has been the Amped Up Podcast for the 16th of September, where we are featured SmackDown. And until next time, and there will be that next time, top guys, we're out. BC saying check you. Salute!